Why is it so impossible for the Senate Judiciary Committee, in this very important matter, to maintain some kind of order? And why is it that Democrats honestly seem to believe that they are going to gain ground by attacking ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, whose members put themselves on the line every day on our behalf? To answer those questions, it's a great honor to welcome back to the show Dr. Bill Cassidy, who is the United States Senator for Louisiana. And he's been a member of the House of Representatives, now a distinguished member of the U.S. Senate, who gave a terrific speech yesterday on behalf of Judge Kavanaugh. I take it, Senator Cassidy, you've made your mind up, as I have, by the way, that Judge Kavanaugh would be an outstanding addition to the Supreme Court.
Absolutely. And, Michael, it's not just us. It's also folks like Justice Ginsburg, who all but mentioned his name in saying that Democrats should vote for qualified candidates no matter what their persuasion, political persuasion or ideological bent. And Lisa Blatt, again, a self-described liberal, worked in the Obama administration, who just thoroughly endorsed him, called him a superstar. And now the left is going crazy because they hate Trump so much they figure they got to hate whoever he nominates.
Well, it's truly bizarre. What concerns me is that some of your Democratic colleagues on the Judiciary Committee are seeming like Kamala Harris to support these demonstrators who are disrupting constantly. You work there. You're in the Senate every day. Can't the Capitol Police or somebody do something to stop the constant disruptions?
So obviously there's a fine line. The American people, the beautiful thing about the First Amendment is you get to speak your mind, and you get to seek redress from your elected officials. But there is a strategy of abuse, a principle that is so sacred is being exploited. And for those, they're not my Democratic colleagues, they are my Senate colleagues who happen to be Democrats. Some of them embarrassed themselves. They've truly embarrassed themselves by being so over the top and complaining about a guy. No, not complaining about a guy, about venting about existential anxiety about what may happen next legally and taking it out on Kavanaugh. It's just shameless.
Oh, it is shameless. And I don't know if you heard, but Senator Harris, your Senate colleague, who happens to be a Democrat, was on MSNBC, and she said that when Ben Sass, your colleague from Nebraska, used the term hysterical to describe some of the reactions to Brett Kavanaugh, he was being sexist, and he was using the traditional way that men tried to silence women's voices. Your response, Senator Cassidy?
Samuel Johnson's quote, "The last refuge of a scoundrel is patriotism." I think we need to update that. The last refuge of somebody who has no shame is to make an ad hominem attack to another complaining about genderism.
That's well done.
What it is.
The whole situation is astonishing. And again, it's one of those points, and please, we should all convey this. There never has been anything comparable done to any of the very liberal nominees for the court. I believe Justice Ginsburg, when she was nominated, was unanimously confirmed. And no one disrupted the hearings for Justice Kagan or Justice Sotomayor, did they?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, so again, we at least have gotten this lesson about decorum. Now, you, meanwhile, have been very outspoken on the Senate floor, and I completely salute you and agree with you about the need to, in all this political madness and extremism, to support immigration and customs enforcement, these guys who put themselves on the line on our behalf every single day. Oh, tell about the situation in Portland, which is so completely out of hand, Portland, Maine.
And by the way, I agree with what you said, but I'm going to make it broader. The Immigration Customs Enforcement, they are in Portland. A mob surrounds their office building and will not let them out. In another situation, before they wouldn't let them out, one of the mob followed an ICE agent to pick up his daughter. They would dox. I didn't know what doxing is, but they would print people's addresses and phone numbers online, encouraging people to go to their homes and obviously implicitly threaten them. And so the mayor just stands by and lets it happen. And for 2 or 3 days, does nothing. Tells the police to stand down. Now, first let me say, no American should be threatened when they are lawfully obeying, they're obeying the law. They should not be threatened by others and a political figure tell the police not to protect them. There is a long history of such terrible things happening. We shouldn't add a chapter. And we can only look to places like Venezuela, where it routinely happens, to see exactly how ugly it can turn out to be. Now, the mayor decides that he wants to take it out on ICE agents, our fellow Americans, who happen to be supporting federal law. When the landlord comes to look at the building, he is threatened with a needle that he is told is HIV infected. Again, the landlord does nothing. So our resolution, David Perdue and I put in a resolution calling upon the Portland mayor to resign.
And this is Portland, I should make clear, it's Portland, Oregon, is that right?
Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
So a leader committed to protecting all law-abiding citizens and public servants from harm can assume the duties as mayor of Portland, Oregon. Americans should not be subjected to, that's what happens in banana republics, political figures telling police to stand down and not to protect fellow Americans.
And by the way, there's something, and you may be unaware of this, but I think all Americans should be aware. There was a big victory last night in the Massachusetts primaries for Ayanna Pressley, who is another insurgent candidate, very, very much on the Democratic left. And when she was announcing Change Can't Wait, which is her slogan, Change Can't Wait, she included Change Can't Wait for our brothers and sisters on the wrong side of the wall. And the implication there appears to be, I think, troubling, given the fact that the wall hasn't been built, right? Has it?
No, it has not been built. And the reality is that the agenda of people like her, socialism, leads to everybody being poor, except for the politically connected elite. Everyone having their security threatened, except for the politically connected elite. We have seen that time and time again throughout history. And there's a reason that countries that wish to become more prosperous abandon socialism and ideally, as time goes on, begin to embrace rule of law, because property rights and rule of law and protection of self all go together. Similarly, they fall apart together. And so if these folks on the left are thinking it through, then what they are thinking through as the end result for all Americans is a terrible thing.
Oh, you're so entirely right. And by the way, when you talk about rule of law, there is no rule of law unless law enforcement is allowed and supported in doing its job. It's not just a problem with disrespect for ICE, is it? I mean, there's more of an ongoing. Yesterday we had Heather McDonald on the show. She wrote a book called The War on Cops. We need more support for law enforcement at every level, don't we?
Absolutely. And the idea that the police have become the enemy when it is a thin blue line protecting us from anarchy is kind of crazy. But, again, the left has kind of gone there, and ICE is the tip of the spear. I think Andrew Cuomo called them a bunch of thugs.
Again, it's completely bananas when the deporter-in-chief, the guy who deported more undocumented immigrants than anybody else, was Barack Obama, wasn't it?
I do recall that at the time. I've not seen the updated statistics, but I do recall that.
Senator Bill Cassidy, who's also a physician, and a physician who, by the way, has helped to deliver a free and very available medical care for people who need it. His story is a remarkable one, and he does a remarkable job for the state of Louisiana and the rest of us. Senator, go back to your Senate business and keep speaking the truth boldly. Meanwhile,